Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Maryland Job Resource pre-event webinar for new Americans. My name is Joanne Oakport, one of the chairs of the workforce, the Skilled Immigrant Task Force. We are so excited that you could make time to be part of this webinar. We are looking forward to engaging with you and sharing all the resources that you will need during this pandemic event where there's been an increase in unemployment. And so our presentations today will be with the Maryland Department of Labor and World Education Services. Next slide. To begin with, we'll do an introduction where we will go over how to use Zoom and the interpretation features, who we are as a Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force. We will work on some resume building by POAC, which is a Professional Outplacement Assistance Center. We'll do credentialing by World Education Services, which is WES. Interview skills will be done with POAC, Professional Outplacement Assistance Center, and job seeker services by the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning, which is DWDAL, and it's called Maryland Department of Labor. And nowadays they go by Labor is the name that they go with. So thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Next slide. Using Zoom and the interpretation features, today's event will be recorded. If you have questions or need technical assistance, please use the Q&A. You can find it at the bottom of your screen. Responses are currently available in English. We will have a Q&A session at the end of each presentation. So please type your questions in the Q&A box. Due to limited time for each topic, any unanswered questions will be answered in a follow-up email to all of you as our participants. Next slide. If you would like to select a language you would like to hear during the webinar, select the world icon on the bottom right of the screen. If you want to mute the original audio, please select mute original audio. And if you're listening from your cell phone, click on the three dots, more, select the language and press done. To utilize the ASL, American Sign Language Interpretation, please pin the ASL interpreter on your screen. And she's highlighted with the name ASL Kristen. Next slide. Task Force is a collaboration of different organizations across to advance the workforce system accessibility and career opportunities for foreign trained individuals in Maryland. We've been working with a huge team in the background, and they've developed amazing resources. And part of the resources that have come through the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force is this event. We released a survey about 2-3 months ago, and to the audience, to the participants, to the residents of Maryland. And through that, we were able to design this program. So we are so excited that you could make time to be part of this program. So for the next section, I'm going to invite my fellow co-host, Claudia Marin, to go ahead and facilitate and introduce our speaker for the next section.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are as excited as we are. I am super excited to introduce our first speaker because you might have had an opportunity to read his book. He's an author of Networking for the Novice, the Nervous, or the Naive Job Seeker. He currently serves as the Assistant Director for the Maryland Professional Outplacement Assistance Center, a program within the Maryland Department of Labor, and has provided his expertise for over 20 years. And in this first section, he's going to give you details about how to make your resume showcase you to the point that that employer can't wait for that meeting. Mr. Dezell, the floor is yours.
All right, and we will get going just as making a clarification in the term resume. Some areas, the term is interchangeable with curriculum vitae or CV. Here in the United States, resume is shorter, about 2 pages. The CV is used as a comprehensive document of all your background, and it's right for the right industries like research, academia, or things like that. We're talking about the resume. Next slide, please. That's generally about 2 pages, and its entire goal is to get you enough information about yourself to a potential employer so that they want to bring you in for the next stage of the hiring process, which is the job interview. Okay. Biggest thing I need to encourage everybody to do on the resume is it's a short time it's reviewed, that we will be covering that in the session, and you want everything there to be what makes you the absolute right candidate for the job. Next slide, please. Right, there's two styles of resumes we'll type. I mean, there's a chronological version, which presents your work, the focus area of your work history is presented by job titles and company names and dates, and in a reverse chronology with your most recent job first and going backwards. You write information not in paragraphs on these, they are in bullet statements because it's easier for readers to scan those quickly and pick up the information. This is the most widely accepted format by employers. Now, ATS is an acronym that stands for Applicant Tracking Software or Systems. I've heard it both. And that is basically artificial intelligence programs that help screen resumes for employers before individuals actually start looking at them. Technology and the recession that began in 2009 greatly expanded how many resumes companies get for each job, and they can't have large enough of a staff to review each individually. So that is a big factor in this. Next slide, please. Then another style is sort of called a Chrono Functional or hybrid style of resume. This is where the information about what you've done in bullets are put under a skill category rather than a job history. It's skills that can be used here can be from both your paid jobs as well as any volunteer work. This is a style that we recommend for somebody who's making a career change because you want to be showcasing your transferable skills. And some individuals may not read. You have some great bullets using that skill, but if they're looking at a chronological and they format and they see a job title and a company name that doesn't seem to match, they may not look at it. So they're like, what's that got to do with us? But it's also used for individuals at times who are like, want to highlight their work on different project types, or if you've been in a long time in one position rather than, you don't want a super long string of bullets. So this would allow you to kind of break them up by a skill category. All right, next slide, please. All right, this is kind of just showing you the format of what a chronological resume would look like. And as you see there, profile, achievements, talk about that. Then there's the experience section with employer names, dates, and job titles. All right, then if you go to the next slide, please, that's kind of a sample of how the hybrid will look. And you'll notice, I use this to encourage the fact that if you're going to maybe do a hybrid style, you're not totally reinventing the document. You notice on here, the opening of a profile, selected achievements, and then questions everybody, that anything from the education on in those sections, they're all the same thing. And many of the bullet statements you'll be using will also be in the chronological. So it's not really as much of the content you're redoing when you're doing this. All right, next slide. All right, important factors that come up on resumes is how you format it. When there are surveys of employers that talk about the most frequent, their frequent problems they cite on resumes, usually formatting is close to the top, or it needs to be consistent in terms of areas, say, of justification, whether you're center justifying things like headings or left. There's not a right way or wrong, but what is an error is if they're jumping all over the page. You want to keep your font consistent and spacing patterns. You do want a good amount of space on the document. Some people start throwing out space lines on the resume when they're worried about keeping it to a certain length, but it makes the resume look more busy and cluttered and not as inviting to be read. All right, and things of structure. If you're doing the chronological, the structure of how you and where you present the employer's name, the job title, and the dates all needs to be consistent. All right, next slide, please. And formatting also makes the document easier to review. Note I use the term review instead of read, because the first view of a resume is normally a quick glance. They're readers looking likely for the key points that they want to make sure the candidate has before they get into the other. So it's reviewed. Select your the size of your font. Usually anything from 10 to 12 is good. 11 is the best. Each of them are, each different font has the characters are a little bit different size, so you have to play around with that. Use bold things like your section, put the section headings and have spaces in between them. Bullets and statements instead of paragraphs, as you saw on that, make it easier to scan, because the amount of extra white space allows an eye to breathe, making it much easier on the viewer. Next slide, please. All right. One of the big things I encourage individuals to use is they pick up, get the information for their resume. Many just kind of, the first place they often go out and grab is a job description, which isn't the best document to use to showcase on a resume, because to get that interview, to get that employer wanting to see you, you've got to do more than just show them what you did. You need to show how well you did the work and how it impacted the clients, customers, anything like that, or also show, and as well as show the volume of work you've handled. So think back to what you've used had for performance evaluations, because that talks about how well you've done the jobs. When you've gotten testimonials from your clients or customers, they've taken the time to write those testimonials because you did your job quite well, and that's what the reader of your resume needs to see. So look at those things to help formulate your statements. Certainly you want to cite awards and recognition, but I can't tell you how often I see individuals who just list an award. They forget that, hey, the individuals who work for that employer might know that that's the Employer of the Year award, but if most of the people reading the resume don't work for the company and the name of an award doesn't mean anything to them, you need to document why you won the award. Go back over old day planners and journals to remind you of different projects you've worked on to help showcase, because you want to show the work you want to show is things that you'd be able to do for the job you're applying to. Networking is, as soon as you can find out who you might know in some way at the company that can give you some insight as to what are the particular qualities that the employer you're applying to is looking for, that will help you target your resume. All right, next slide, please. With content, just some tips here. This is that looking for a job is a sales and marketing process. You are marketing and selling your talent. And we look at the resume as the professional brochure. The reason I say make it easy to review, look at that amount there that says the average initial review of a resume is about 6 to 10 seconds. And I will tell you, when I began doing this work with POAC about 20 years ago, the general line of that was about 11 to 15. It's getting shorter. People's attention spans are shorter, so you have to catch the attention quickly. It needs to be one resume for every job is not going to get you as much results as targeting it to each job. What we recommend is, if you, for each job you're going to put on your resume, put as many bullet statements as you can of things you did. But then for each job you're looking at, you're applying to, look through that and say, all right, which 6 bullets, the things maximum of 6 bullets that I've done show that I can do this job best, because that might be very different for each job you're applying to. And there is ageism in the current labor market. So You want to avoid, if you've, like me, you've been working for quite a while, you want to be hesitant about putting dates that might reflect your age, but make sure you don't overdo that, because example I give here, you want to make sure you qualify for the job. On the question of how much of your work history do you show, there's your job, remember, is to get the interview. And some job seekers just have this line in the sand. Well, I read I should only show 10 years. Well, 10 years is the minimum, but if you're going hard and fast with that rule, what if the only time you did you had some experience doing something that is required for that job was a position you held 15 years ago? If you leave that off the resume, you probably will not get the interview. So, okay, next slide. So the first, I'm going to go through some sections on this, and the first couple sections I'll be showing you are formatted the exact same way, either chronological or chrono functional. The open was, we call it either career summary, professional profile, or qualification summary. Many of you may have used an objective in yours, seeking a job as a career advisor. Well, that's a little too brief, and it's also stating the obvious. You're sending somebody your resume, they've got a job opening. A recruiter friend of mine made that point once. He said, an objective is a waste of a couple of lines. You're giving me your resume, I've got a job opening, we both know the objective. This starts telling them what a little bit in a short paragraph you can say about yourself. TMAY is an acronym we use here for tell me about yourself. Tell them enough about yourself in that brief paragraph to show the value you bring to these specific job that you're applying to. And once again, it's targeted, to the job, adjusted each time you're sending it out. Next slide, please. All right. We recommend the next thing show it being a little bit of a highlight section. Titles can be either selected achievements, highlights, or accomplishments. They all mean the same, basically the same thing. This is, see, if you're going right into your work chronology after the summary, which is your value proposition, then your work history dictates when the achievements appear. And maybe there was a very successful project you did about 3 jobs ago. That's going to get pushed to the second page. This way, you can show the top 3 or 4 right there on the top half of the first page, which, I'd say, the summary is your value proposition. These are things you did successfully that prove the value proposition you're submitting to them is true. So you want to give action and results, and similar format when you're doing bullets for the jobs. You want to give action and results. Next slide, please. This is some of the bit of the formula you want to use to make a statement an accomplishment, like a statement that's from, how do you take a statement from your job description and turn it into an accomplishment? Well, make sure you're including what was accomplished and any measurement you can give that documents the accomplishment, or as much how much impact it's having. As somebody who does what I do, it's how many people am I presenting to when I give presentations. So that's like the impact of how many individuals I've had in things. And then by doing what? Give it those 3 points, and it makes it a stronger statement. Okay, so next slide, please. When you write bullet statements, you never use the personal pronoun I, or you don't narrate it with your name first. It usually starts just with the verb. That's the accepted resume language in the United States. Start with a strong verb. Usually it's a great indication that it's copied right from a job description if you start it with something like responsible for or duties include. You don't want to be showing your responsibilities. You want to show how well you took them out. They're about 2 to 3 lines long. End them with periods. When you're presenting numbers, the guideline is you'll spell out a number that's 0 through 9, and anything 10 or above you put in numeric form. Make use of symbols like $signs and percentage because they catch the eye of the reader, especially when they're giving results. Okay, next slide, please. All right. Now, if you're on the chronological, here's the difference. You're going to title the part that presents your work history you're showing called professional experience or work experience, either one. You go in reverse chronological order, bold your job titles. The format of this is on these, if we get the slides from this, the format of this is on that one I showed you earlier where you see here how that's outlined. Give a little bit of a context of the company and then the best 6 bullet statements you can get for each achievement. And emphasizing again, you'll show enough of the experience as you need to show to make sure you qualify for the job. All right. Next slide, please. If you're going to go with the hybrid or that and present your bullets under skills, you would then title it areas of expertise. And you have the skill category that would be like in mine might be like a presentation. You would list, the different type of presentations on that. Similar guideline, the best 6 bullets. And you may have up to 10 different skills you could put enough bullets under to make a good resume, but on each in particular one, keep it to the best 5. But one big advantage of this is you can sequence how they appear depending on the job you're applying to, which skill is most important. You should show that first. Then you just give the work history on one of these is just your job title, employers, names, and dates that you will see on there. Okay. All right, next slide, please. So now, education usually comes next. Now, I will give one exception on this. You'll sequence these in the order of their importance to what you're applying to. So which is more important to your career at this stage? If you've been working for a while and there's usually more marketable about you in the experience section, so that will go first. But example, if I'm teaching this to some new college students who are just graduating, they're going to be putting their education before experience because that's going to be more relevant to the jobs they're applying to. All right. So fairly simple. This one doesn't go into chronology. It's your highest credential that you have should be first, and in the format, the degree, your major, and the school. Some of these can be combined with like certifications if need be. Back to that point we made about age and not drawing attention to that. On a resume, we typically leave the date of a degree off if it's been more than 10 years. And I understand people say, well, they're going to ask you on the application. Correct. But when they ask you, then you provide it. But unless you have to, you don't have to volunteer that. Okay. So next slide, please. So here's some possible just additional sections you can have. They're all legitimate, but you probably don't need all of them. Depending how much you have left on, ideally the second page you've got or your last page you're going to do, pick after education. Pick whichever of these you think are important to show and get those on there, and just leave the others off if they're not as important, because they're probably not going to make or break you. All righty. So next slide. I'm open if there's some questions in the Q&A that people would like to ask me. I will be happy to answer some of them, if as many as I can. Okay. Is it possible to have an example of a copy of the resume that he is explaining? And it would be on the slides.
And the slides in today's recording will be sent out to everyone on Friday.
So then there's another, I don't have experience as that. So what should I write on the resume? Most jobs say I need at least one experience. Well, for experience, what you can do is It doesn't have to be paid if you are, if you've gotten training and you've done practicums as part of that, you can list that on there. Many jobs will say they need at least that, but if they are struggling to get, if they don't have enough candidates, individuals starting out have to start somewhere. So I would still like you to go ahead and apply. All right. And there's a comment that Katie would like to answer this question live. Okay, and now okay, that's not, I see how it's working now. Okay. Like to ask you about, is there any place for a phone or email that would go underneath your name? You'll see that on the sample that comes in the slide. That's usually underneath the name as a telephone and an email address. Okay. And a question here, what about if I'm switching careers at education, but in a different area and no specific, what should go first? That would be the hybrid or the chrono functional, and the skill areas would go first. And you're going to be documenting transferable skills, which are skills you've acquired in a different industry, but they're applicable to other areas. Like, I mean, maybe if you're buying, you've never been had the job as a buyer, but you've done purchasing and things like that for one of your jobs. That would be a transferable skill. All right. Okay, question. If a person unemployed but is doing community engagement volunteering work, where can they list that experience? They can put that in the experience. Experience section on a resume is not limited to paid experience. Any experience that showcases your professional abilities is applicable to, can be listed in the experience section.
Thank you, Mr. Dezell, for all your wonderful questions. The next member of our team is going to be introducing the next presentation. Thank you very much, and we will hear more from Mr. Dezell after the next presentation.
Hi, this is Mitra Basu with the Howard County Workforce Development. I'm going to introduce Senay Gebremedhin, and he is a Global Talent Bridge Program Manager at the World Education Services. In this position, he's responsible for developing and strengthening partnerships and collaborating on programmatic initiatives at the state and local level to support internationally trained professionals re-enter their profession or continue their education in the United States. Prior to joining WES Global Talent Bridge, Senay was a program specialist at the Ethiopian Community Development Council, which is also known as ECDC, one of the 9 national nonprofit resettlement agencies. In that role, he coordinated ECDC's long-term refugee integration initiatives implemented through 13 affiliate offices from California to Massachusetts. He holds a bachelor's degree from James Madison University, where he studied political science and minored in Africana studies. So Senay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mitra, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this event. Thank you for the organizers that put it together, and really, it's hard to follow Tom. That was very, really honestly, very useful information that he shared with all of you, and hopefully the things that he shared are going to be useful to you as you pursue your career in the US. As Mitra said, my name is Senay Gebremedhin. I am a program manager at WES Global Talent Bridge. And today I'll talk to you a bit about international credential evaluation and credential recognition, how you're able to use your experience and education earned outside of the US in the US to pursue your profession or continue your education. Next slide, please. Just to give you an introduction of the organization that I work for an organization called World Education Services, WES. Some of you might be familiar. We are one of the largest excuse me, credential evaluation agencies. We are a nonprofit that began our work around 45 years ago in the early 80s. And we've been providing standardized excellence in service of credential evaluation. We've really set the standard for what it means to evaluate international academic credentials. I work for a program called Global Talent Bridge within WES. Global Talent Bridge was begun around 12 years ago when we noticed a growing number of our clients, WES clients, were getting credentials evaluated, but we're not using it for any purpose. We wanted to understand why that was. And in our pursuit in understanding the reason for not using their evaluation, we learned that majority of the individuals getting their evaluation but not using it were immigrants who've come to the US that didn't understand the pathway into a professional job or how to continue their education. So Global Talent Bridge was started to help individuals with education earned outside of the US to be able to utilize their education meaningfully and fully in the United States. The third wing of World Education Services, and one that's pretty new, is our philanthropic initiative called the Miri Masafa Fund that supports CBOs, local community-based organizations, large agencies, and also local and state governments to support immigrants, skilled immigrants, particularly immigrants with international education experience, get back to their profession or continue their education. Next slide. To speak a little bit more about who we are at Global Talent Bridge, we really identify ourselves as having three buckets of work. The first of which is what we're doing today, what I'm doing with you today, which is engaging directly with the immigrant population, helping them to understand the value of the education that they come in with to the US or Canada, and and the resources that exist that they could use to be able to re-enter their profession or continue their education in the US. The last two are our work mostly with service providers, local government, state governments, and in our advocacy to reduce barriers that have systematically kept immigrants with international education experience from re-entering their profession or continuing their education. We've worked in the past with the Skilled Immigrant Task Force, the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force, through our initiative called the Skilled Immigrant Integration Program, SIP, to provide resources and support some of their initiatives locally by supporting, and that be the second bucket of our work, through providing institutional support. We've also done advocacy to reduce barriers, especially around licensing, and to have states and employers be receptive of the credentials earned outside of the United States. Next slide, please. The core of the work that we do centers around the data that you see on your screen. In the US, there's varying reasons for this, but in the US, there's about over 2.2 million college-educated immigrants with education outside of the US who are unable to continue their profession in the US. So they're unemployed or underemployed in their education. That's about 1/5 of the total labor force. Each state forgoes close to $39 billion in federal and local in earnings per person. So these are professionals who could potentially have the potential to earn up to 39 million annually, but because they're underemployed or unemployed, this is a foregone personal earning. States and local, federal government and state and local government also lose roughly about $2.2 billion in revenue because people are underemployed or unemployed in their profession. And so this is at the core of what we want to address at Global Talent Bridge. How do we make sure that individuals who have earned education outside of the US be able to utilize that education so that they don't have to forego their earnings, and their communities are also growing by making sure that they've created the space for these individuals to be successful professionally, and can contribute at a higher degree locally. Next slide, please. So having talked about the 2.2 million individuals with college education, and that's a large number of immigrants, and that's been consistent over the years that we've tracked it, that level of individuals are underemployed or unemployed in their profession, and for the most part, they're not sure how to continue their education or to get back to their profession. And so we did a research a few years back called Steps to Success, wanting to understand what specific things were the major barriers to entry for employment for immigrants with education earned outside of the US. And we identified 4 that you see on your screen on the right side. Today, for our presentation and discussion, considering the time that we have, we'll only talk about the first one, which is the inadequate recognition of international credentials into education and credentials, but the others are equally important, and there are resources that you can take advantage of both locally and nationally to help you meet some of these barriers or address some of these barriers. The second is lack of education or work experience in the US. A lot of employers, especially employers who are unfamiliar with international credentials, seek and have an easier time hiring someone who has a work experience in the United States or have some level of education, additional education in the United States. So this isn't to say that you need to repeat your education, start from scratch, but rather from what you have, build on to make your resume, make employers, make yourself more marketable to employers. And these could be both non-credit and credit-bearing courses. They could be short-term courses, really anything that could help boost your marketability with employers. The third is social capital. Sometimes you might have, or low social capital, you might have heard of this sometimes being referred as networking. Many employee service providers, or many people would let you know, will share with you that in the US, close to 80% of jobs are found through networking or through people that we know. And when you're an immigrant, you essentially do not have that social capital, that network that many of us rely to be professionally successful, but also sometimes inform how we move around in our lives, in our personal lives. Social networking or social capital, if you think of it from where you've come, many of us have neighbors that we've grown up with, family, friends, people that we've gone to school with, people that we might have worked with, people that we have in our social network, in our community that we rely on for information, but also to help us find things that we need. When we are new to a community, when we are new to a country, those existing connections, networks, don't exist, and so we're forced to build those networks from scratch. And some tools that are very helpful in this process are things like LinkedIn, meetups, but really anywhere and everywhere that you're interacting with anyone. I think having the foresight to engage that individual, making sure that you connect with them and making that connection last so that it can help you find employment. I should say here that when you're networking or when you're trying to build a social capital, you shouldn't initially think of asking for a job, but rather strengthening that relationship so that down the road that person, if an opportunity does come up, thinks of you for that position. And lastly, one of the major barriers for most immigrants is the limited English proficiency. And the English proficiency here, particularly talking about proficiency in contextualized English, in English that's specific to the job that you're pursuing. And so that not having that proficiency could be a barrier for entry into employment, but there are very many English training programs at community colleges, private institutions that you could take advantage of, and that really could be helpful in improving your language, but also meeting the second barrier or helping you reduce the second barriers outcomes. So that gives you an additional education that you were able to obtain in the US and that you can include on your resume. Next slide, please. So I mentioned for our discussion today, we'll be talking about credential evaluation and recognition. The lack of recognition of a credential earned outside of the US is, as I identified on the previous slide, one of the major issues or barriers that affect immigrants with international education and experience. Next slide, please. There is a difference between credential evaluation and credential recognition. An evaluation is done by an institution that isn't necessarily going to recognize the evaluation itself or the credential. It's a third party that is trustworthy. So an organization like World Education Services or WES, and there are many others who do credential evaluations who will help to compare. What would they essentially do is compare your academic accomplishments to standards in the United States or Canada. And then once they've compared your academic accomplishment, the evaluation agency provides an equivalency, a report that you could use to continue your education, to pursue a license or pursue employment. An evaluation, essentially, what it does is help institutions understand the quality of education and the academic accomplishments that you've had in your home country. Now, unfortunately, in the US, there are no universally accepted evaluation services. And so World Education Services, WES or WES, is one of many credential evaluation agencies that provides the service. If you were to type in credential evaluation agencies, you'll get a list of organizations that offer this service. Now, not all credential evaluation agencies will be useful to you. So it's very important to understand how and why you're going to, for what you're going to be using your credential evaluation, which is the recognition side of it. Another resource to consider if you're not sure on how you're going to use your credential evaluation, but would like to understand which agencies are reputable that you'd like to use for credential evaluation, I suggest you look at NACES. It's NACES.org. I'll type it in the chat just so that you have it. If you go to the NACES website, NACES.org, it's the National Association of Credential Evaluation Service Agencies. You can look, I think there's a list of 19 evaluation agencies just to compare on the different requirements for evaluation, but there is no universally accepted evaluation service in the US or Canada. Next slide, please. So as you're thinking about where to get your credential evaluation done, you need to, before you pay for and go through the process of an evaluation, think about what you're going to use it for. What will it be useful to you? How will it be useful to you? Credential evaluations do cost money. They take up time. So you don't want to go into them just for the sake of knowing if your credentials, your international credentials are equivalent to credentials in the US. You should really have a goal, because they're really, credential evaluations are a stepping stone or stepping step towards the eventual goal that you might have. And that eventual goal might be obtaining a license, a professional license. It might be wanting to go back, if you're looking to go back to school, so attending a post-secondary institution, or you're maybe just looking for employment. And all of these three institutions have varying requirements, some more than others, but each of them have their requirements, which would mean that you need to understand what those requirements are before pursuing an evaluation. And so, and this sort of fits into why there aren't any universally accepted evaluation agencies. But before we speak about recognition, if you go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit more about the actual evaluation report. There are two types of evaluation reports. There's one that we refer to as a document by document, or D by D. This is a summary of your academic accomplishments. It typically is used for your first year admission. So if you have only completed up to a high school diploma and you would like to get a college degree, an associate's degree or 4-year degree, And then a document by document is really the only thing that's required by the admissions office typically to help you re-enter or continue your education in the US. A document by document is also very useful for employment. So if you're pursuing employment and want to have a report that shows that your education is equivalent to the one to the educational standards in the US, then a document by document might be a useful resource for you to make the case to advocate for yourself with an employer. The second type of evaluation report is a course by course or C by C. And a C by C, a course by course evaluation, provides a much more detailed list of academic accomplishments. And so it shows the grade point average that you were able to achieve, the courses that you completed, and also a US GPA, grade point average that you had earned in your home country, and how that translates to a US GPA. The course by course is typically very useful if you're in middle of your academic career. If you had completed a few years of college, undergraduate in your home country, moved to the US, want to continue to pursue your education, then a course by course might be useful to show courses that you've completed, which of those courses could be transferred for credit so that you don't have to restart your educational journey. The second is graduate school. Most graduate schools require for you to have a course by course evaluation, again, to show if you've completed all the prerequisites to enter the graduate program that they have. And lastly, most licensing bodies require for you to show a course by course. Again, this is to be able to see if you've met all the prerequisites required to obtain a license in that profession. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I'm sharing two samples of an evaluation report that WES produces. I want to emphasize, I've mentioned this in the past, but just want to emphasize WES is one of many credential evaluation agencies. So not all credential evaluation reports would look like the one that you see on your screen, but this is a WES credential evaluation. And again, WES has been around for over 45 years. We are one of the more recognized evaluation agencies in the US. So this is to say, if you were to get your evaluation done at WES, it would look like this, and the likelihood that it would be accepted widely is high. On your left side is a document by document report. I mentioned it was more of a summary. It does just indicate the individual's name, the year that they might have completed their education, their date of birth. It indicates where the documents that we had used to evaluate were received, how they were received, and the equivalency to a US standard. So if it's on the bottom, you see US equivalency. It says if it's a bachelor's degree, it would say it's a bachelor's degree. If it's more than a bachelor's degree, it would indicate that it's more than a bachelor's degree. If it's less than that, it will also indicate the same. On the right side is a course by course evaluation report. It breaks down each course that the individual had completed using their transcript, assign a US credit, an equivalent credit that they might have achieved in the US had they taken the courses here, and then the grade that they were able to get while completing the coursework. This is really important, especially for employers at times, because some educational systems are very different than the ones in the US, and so this creates familiarity for those who are looking at it from the US who are unfamiliar with educational systems abroad, to understand your accomplishments, your academic accomplishments, and how they're equivalent to the US standard. Next slide, please. So having talked a little bit about credential evaluation, the process to evaluate, the agencies that do that, I wanted to talk to you about recognition. And this is really important in that we've seen many times that many folks will get a credential evaluation, but you are not sure how to use it. So you might apply for an evaluation through WES. WES gives you a report, but then you're not sure how to use it to pursue your goals. And so when you're thinking about credential evaluation, I mentioned earlier that it's very important to have a goal on how to use it. And this is where recognition fits. So it's it's important who accepts the evaluation in order for the evaluation to be useful to you. And in order to understand who accepts the evaluation, who recognizes the evaluation, you need to understand what their requirements might be. And the requirements for employers, licensing, or regulatory bodies, and colleges and universities are going to be very different. And really different based on, for licensing bodies and colleges, based on the governing body for those institutions. You should understand evaluations are by their nature advisory. They are the professional opinion of institutions who've done this for an extended period of time, who have staff that do research on the academic standards of countries across the world, at least in the West. And based on our understanding and our experience, we give an advisory. The report is an advisory of what we believe is your academic accomplishments are equivalent to in the US. And so the recipient agencies, based on that understanding, have institutions that they rely on for evaluation purposes. And so based on their acceptance is how you should choose which credential evaluation agency you will use. Next slide, please. So just to break down the three receiving institutions, here I'll begin with the easier one. I'll begin with employer recognition. Most employers don't have a standard on how they accept evaluation. Some might not even request an evaluation, especially larger employers who have worked with individuals from those institutions, from institutions that you might have attended or have familiarity with international education and experience, might not require for you to get a credential evaluation. However, for most employers, it's the case that they're not familiar with international credentials. And lack of familiarity really pushes people to make decisions that might seem counterintuitive. So they might decide not to hire an individual because they don't recognize the institution that they attended, and they feel that there's no way for them to verify if that education is equivalent to the one that's to an education system in the US. And if the individual that's coming in would be able to manage the job. Again, they're not familiar. What they don't know, right? What we don't know, we don't know either. And when we don't know something, we tend to stay away from it. And so, really, an evaluation is to help you advocate for yourself, so that you could say, maybe you're not familiar with the institution that I had attended, but I did receive an evaluation, and that evaluation says it's equivalent to a US degree. So it's a tool to help you evaluate. We always encourage individuals who have their credentials evaluated to include it in their resume. And there's a sample language that you see on your screen to say that it's been evaluated and it's equivalent to a degree in the US. But just understand each employer is going to be different. And so tailor your expectations and your sort of goal based on the employer. And always reach out to an employer, their HR department, for an informational interview to find out what kinds of requirements that they might have, and how flexible they are with the credentials earned outside of the US. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The next two that I would talk about, licensing regulatory bodies and educators have very strict guidelines. Most professions that are regulated. So we're talking about more or less all of the professions in healthcare, so doctors, nurses, pharmacy techs, to allied health therapists, to engineering, architecture, accounting. All of these things require licensing. But for the licensing requirement, each profession has its unique requirements, and then within each profession, each state has its own unique requirement. So all of you are in Maryland, but if you ever think of moving out of Maryland, you might need to understand the requirements for that state that you're moving into And then once you've understood the requirement for that profession in that state, find out which credential evaluation agency that they accept for that profession, and then make sure that you use that credential evaluation. I'll just give an example for regulatory professions, nursing, for instance. For nursing, Wes, if you're looking to get a credential evaluation and you sent your nursing degree to Wes, Wes will evaluate your nursing degree. For we do not know what you're using it, right? And so we will give you a credential evaluation. However, if you're pursuing your license in the state of Maryland in nursing, the Nursing Board of Maryland will not accept a West credential evaluation. Now, if you're pursuing your education and you're trying to go to Montgomery College, that evaluation will be useful to you. However, if you're pursuing your license in nursing, getting your credentials evaluated by West will not be useful. So really important to first do a background research on the requirements for credential evaluation for all regulated professions, whatever that might be. Next, please. Similarly to regulatory bodies, educational institutions also have requirements for admission. And so before you get your credential evaluation, first find out what the requirements for admissions are at that institution. Once you figured out the admissions requirements, they typically have a list of credential evaluation agencies that you could use for your international credentials. Montgomery College, to continue with that example, for instance, only accepts a West credential evaluation, but that's not always true for other institutions. Other institutions use multiple different agencies, or they might do the credential evaluation themselves. And so first, please have a clear understanding of what you're going to use your credential evaluation. Are you trying to pursue an education? And if so, if you're pursuing an education, what institutions are you looking to attend? And what are the admissions requirements for that institution and the credential evaluation that they might ask for? If you're pursuing your license, again, what is the profession? What are the requirements of that profession in order to achieve your license or to get your license? And then what are the requirements of the state that you're trying to pursue that license in around credential evaluation, and which agencies do they accept? I've spoken a lot, so I'll stop here. If we go to the next slide, if folks have any questions, I'd be more than happy to respond to them.
Thank you, Senay. You have given us so much information. We have a lot of wonderful questions that we're going to answer together as a group, because now we're like taking all this information in.
Sure.
I have a resume, showcases my skills and abilities. I have the edge. I'm getting my credential for my academic background. What's next? The interview process. Mr. Dezell is now going to walk us through the interview process, giving us some tips to answer those questions. There are some resources that are going to be provided for you so that you can get an even more depth connection with the opportunities available through Wes. But now we're going to turn it over to Mr. Dezell.
Okay, thank you very much. And yes, and just reinforcing Wes on that, I have certainly seen my share of resumes where the credential of the equivalent is mentioned. So it is an acceptable factor in the United States to have that on your resume. Okay, as Claudia said, you know, we've gotten through, hopefully the resume's gotten them interested, and you are now in the phase of the process of the job interview. Couple things we're going to cover in this area is, you know, the big thing is the anxiety. It's very important for us in our careers to be able to interview and land jobs, but unfortunately, we usually only do it when we're needing to change jobs, and that can be many years in between. So it becomes new to us. There's a lot of anxiety about that. So we're going to talk about ways you can alleviate that. Preparation, you know, when we discuss interview strategy, you know, most of the tips are things to do long before you get into the interview in that. Now, technology brought a lot of the interviews to virtual platforms like Zoom. Even as the pandemic gets in and people are more going to offices, this is still going to be the case because employers are just finding it is much easier to schedule virtual interviews when you, especially if you're having panels, when you don't have to bring a lot of people into the same place. And we will Then say discuss some typical questions employers can make. As much if we have time and questions you can make. And the big key is through it all at the end to close an interview, encourage you. If you want the job, ask for the job with the employer. Okay, next slide, please. We will give the feedback when we can. Obviously, can move to the next slide. We've already addressed that. Okay, anxiety, practice. All right. There is, if you are on LinkedIn, a tool which is available to help you and also do the research on the company. So if you go to the next slide on LinkedIn, I've got it copied and pasted there. If you go to the jobs tab and then move over there on the left column, you'll see an interview prep. If you go to the next slide, you can get a thing, you can click that blue button and you would be directed into a place to have a camera available to you to practice your answers to questions and replay that and get feedback. Having trained many interviewers in my career, they just say just to watch yourself answer is one of the greatest tools about practicing. And the more you get to recite answers of questions, and even the questions say, tell me about yourself, which we'll address. Just practice that, make it seem as natural, and watch yourself is a great tool to help you interview better. Okay, next slide, please. All right, preparation. Do as much research about the company or agency you're interviewing with as possible, because you will be asked, what do you know about the company? And if you say, well, not very much, you're probably not going any further than that interview. One of the best resources available is the site Glassdoor. You look up each company on Glassdoor. They have an interview tab, which also gives, there are people who use Glassdoor, do reviews. There'll be feedback there about particular styles of interviews the companies use and types of questions asked. Read as much as you can about the company. Just follow it on their social media, on LinkedIn, any of them. They will have, you can either like or follow the company. LinkedIn also, when you go to the company page, will show you if you're connected to anybody at the company, or one of your connections knows somebody at the company who you might say reach out to and say, hey, I'd love to get any information about how the company does interviews from somebody who works there. That's pretty easy for people to respond to that and answer. Okay, next slide, please. Now we got to do the technology part, and it's challenging. Find out, question now when you're told, okay, we're scheduling the interview, you get the invite. Before you even get that, find out the platform. They each have their own kind of quirks, and you want to be able to, practice on that so that you're not fumbling with something in the middle of the interview. All right. Each time, even if you're on a call that at an interview that you've been on that platform before, you want to check your sound each time. Be very careful. If you share on a site like Zoom, if you share a computer with another house member, to go in and change your name on that platform, so what name appears below you on that. Lighting, you want to have about 2 to 3 sources of light, and they should be in front of you. Be careful, because if the lighting comes behind you, your face gets darkened, not the presentation you would like. Focus your eyes on where your camera is on your position. Sometimes depending on the orientation, if the photo of the person you're talking to is over to the right, it can look like you're not staring at them if you're looking to the right of your screen. That's because that's your simulation of eye contact. All right. Next slide, please. All right. When you want to answer interview questions, somebody who's trained in interviewing candidates is trained to ask open-ended questions that are designed to get you, the candidate, to do as much of the talking as you can. So this is a little acronym about to points that you want to make. If they're a frequent style question, it's known as behavioral, is something along the lines of, give me an example of when you did something. So if you can then make sure when you practice these answers, and as you are preparing for the interview, look at that site on LinkedIn as well has sample questions down the side that are commonly asked in interviews. Practice out how, if you were asked that question, you might answer that, and use this acronym. Provide the situation, what the task you were assigned to do is, what action you did, and any results. And coming up also on the resume too, with measurement and quantifying the results. When you state something, if you give some results that have a number on that, it just is received as being much more credible than rather saying successfully did this. Give them the results, it certainly resonates more as being more believable to them. So look through a lot of those questions, or maybe your research has talked about what common questions that are asked by a company, and practice some of those answers with that acronym method to practice that. Okay. So next slide, please. The opening of an interview is often this question I referred to earlier: tell me about yourself. It's designed to, again, get you doing the talking, and as a start of the interview. So the way, these are all the different things you want to point out in this question. Describe your skills, achievements, education, and experience, all mentioning the stuff, the parts of each of that show how well you will be able to do the job. It's clearly going to be something that's going to be different for each company, because there's different things you'll want to emphasize. But it will set the tone of the interview and going on for that. So if you're practicing, I'll give you a guideline. People say, well, how long should the answer be? Because there's a couple other things that talk about introducing yourself when you're looking for jobs. You might hear a term called elevator speech, which is a short that you might introduce yourself to somebody in a meeting or a networking event that's about 30 seconds. You want longer than that. This will be about 1.5 to 2.5 minutes as a just general guideline. All right. So next slide, please. So we will address some of the, probably since we're up on time, we'll address questions that you particularly want answered that you'll face in an interview. So we will come at that and try to answer them as best we can as we get together. Another very important part of the interview is, after the interviewer has finished their questions to you, they will say, what questions do you have? Very important part of the interview, and a big key is you will be evaluated a lot on what probably is one of the first questions you ask when you get that chance. And it will kind of is a bit somewhat of a turnoff to the employer if the first questions you ask are all focused on what's in the job for you. Things like, okay, well, what's the pay? What are my days off going to be? Things like that. You want to focus these on ways to help them decide that you're the right person. So ask them things like, what are the most important qualities or the skills you're desiring in this candidate? And if they mention something that didn't come up that you had prepared to say about yourself, which you wanted to make a good point about something you've done well, and they never asked the question, maybe they'll mention when you ask them this question, what, something about that skill. And when they mention, or they answer, well, this skill is important, then you can answer with, well, you know, this is something I did that might assure you I have that skill. What are some of the biggest challenges for this position? You know, do they have a time frame? So is there a plan? You want to know, how did the position come open? Once it was one of the most difficult jobs I had in my career for several years, and I was, you know, enamored by the job, paying quite well and things, but I was kind of told in the interview that they've had a big turnover problem in the job. They've had in 4 years, they've been through 5 different people who nobody lasting over a year. I felt very proud I lasted 5 in that role, but I could, after, you know, it didn't take me very long to realize why they struggled so much to keep people there, because the job had a lot of built-in unrealistic expectations, especially now with their chances of being remote work. You want to know what's going to be the structure of your communication with your supervisor. And why not? They might ask the individuals you're talking to what they like best about the company and see how they answer. So those are some of the ones you might want to ask when you bring up. This only happens if you are, next slide, please. If through all this, you've decided this is an opportunity I really like and I'm excited about it, ask them for the job. And the way you would ask, you have to probably use the way you're most comfortable requesting this and saying, this is very interesting. I would like to be part of this team, because it really needs to come sincere. So there's not one little script question or script thing I would suggest for everybody about the way to ask for it, because it needs to come across really sincerely. Because if you want that, it is a sales meeting and sales professionals are trained. You make sure you ask for the business, because they want to make sure the customer knows that you want that. All right, next slide. I think that covers mine. As I said, we're gonna have a little time to answer a couple of those for you, but we'll try to get ones you have in the chat. If anybody is interested in the program I'm with, Professional Outplacement Assistance Center, that is the name, and the website is right there to look up and learn more about it. And if you've got any questions about us, that is my email, thomas.dezell@maryland.gov. And I thank you and all the panel for asking me to come here. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your expertise. You all saw at the beginning, I was very excited, and you can see why. So now we have the resume, we have our credentials, we have our interviewing tips. Where do I get assistance to put this all together? Well, the next section is going to give you that job seeker services. It's going to be presented to you by a team. We have Mitra Basu, who you met briefly a few minutes ago. She's a workforce development consultant for Howard County government and a board member at the Department of Housing and Community Development. She immigrated from India in 1971, holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Calcutta, India, and is a proud Howard County resident. Also working with her today is going to be Liz Rodriguez. She's a business service consultant working for the Department of Labor, Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning, and part of the Regional Business Solutions team for the state of Maryland, serving Cecil, Harford, and Baltimore counties. She's experienced in bilingual workforce development professional as well, with certifications in professional resume writing, career coach, and global development, career development facilitator, to name a few. Ladies, the floor is yours. Tell us how we can access these resources and benefits.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Claudia, and thank you all for joining us today. Yes, you've heard from Tom and Senay about job seeker services available to you, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. We are known to be the state's best kept secret, because a lot of individuals are not aware of the wonderful job seeker services that we provide at the American Job Centers. We have 32 American Job Centers throughout the state of Maryland, and they are all available to assist you with your job search needs. On staff, you'll find certified professional resume writers and career coaches. You will find that we have locations that are conveniently located. So just let the experts and dedicated professionals at the American Job Center help you find the job that you want. Like I said, the American Job Centers are located in each of Maryland's counties and provide state-of-the-art technologies to match individuals with job opportunities. Like I said, we have dedicated job service specialists that are willing and able to assist you with your job search needs. Next slide, please. All right, so the county directory that you see here will help you find the center nearest you. Simply click on the county of your choice to find out more information about our services. You can see the website on your screen. So if you go to that website, you'll be able to get to this map of the state, and you will click on your corresponding county, and it will take you to the job center that is nearest to you. So just make sure that you are utilizing the job center that is closest to you. Next slide, please. All right, so these are just some of the job seeker services and resources available to you at the American Job Centers. So we will work with you with placement and referral assistance. We also have job search workshops and seminars like the one that Tom has very professionally presented to you today. A lot of good information. This is actually a short version of his actual presentation for resume and interview assistance. All the centers throughout the state provide similar services like resume and interview. Some offer LinkedIn courses. So all these seminars are free and no cost to you. So make sure you're taking advantage of the free seminars. Also, there are training opportunities. I've been looking at the chat box throughout this presentation, and I've not noticed that a lot of you are interested in getting training opportunities. This is the right place to be. We can provide you, we can facilitate you with training opportunities through our POAC partners. For example, Mitra here, my colleague, she works with Howard County government, and they are our partners in providing training funding and training opportunities for you. So make sure that you follow up with your job center and ask for WIOA funding, WIOA, that stands for Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act. So make sure that you ask about WIOA funding and see if you're eligible for free training. We can also help you obtain your GED assistance, which is the high school equivalency. Labor market information is always readily available at the centers and through the Maryland Workforce Exchange. I will talk a little bit more about the MWE or Maryland Workforce Exchange in a minute. We can also help you with career assessments if you're unsure about what career path to take. If maybe you were doing something and you want to change careers, we can help you with that. We have assessments. We can give you assessments or some kind of testing to see which skills match your interests. So we can facilitate job coaching in addition. POAC is always part of my presentation, the Professional Outplacement Assistance Center. They offer great assistance to mid to senior level professionals. They are experts in everything job search related. We also offer veteran services for those individuals with military backgrounds. We also help the returning citizen or reentry With reentry navigators, they are here to assist those individuals involved with some background issues. It can be criminal, it can be bad credit. So there's assistance for that population as well. And last but not least, we have our DOORS or Department of Rehabilitation Services to work with individuals with differing abilities. Next slide, please. All right, so here you're seeing a screenshot of the Maryland Workforce Exchange. Your job search should start with the Maryland Workforce Exchange. It's a wonderful, wonderful website for your job search and for anything that you want to find out about companies or about training opportunities, labor market information, everything is in there. I mean, I love it. I use it every single day, and not just because it's part of my job, but because I find it very user-friendly and very rich with information. The Maryland Workforce Exchange website is a powerful online workforce services system that provides fast access to a complete set of employment tools. Employers can look for candidates and post job announcements, and job seekers can look and apply for jobs. They can also build resumes, find labor market information, and utilize other practical job search tools. So if you don't have a resume right now or would like to kind of start working on it, the Maryland Workforce Exchange has a template that you can use. And we suggest that you always have a resume uploaded or created in the Maryland Workforce Exchange, because that way you can have it ready from wherever you are, and it's available for you to share with employers. The creation of an account as an employer or job seeker is at no cost like the rest of our services. Online, you can find MWE at mwejobs.maryland, all spelled out, .gov. On your smartphone, simply look for MWE Jobs from your Apple iTunes or Google Play app stores and start taking advantage of MWE's mobile companion. Next slide. All right, so here are some additional resources for you. Employers can receive assistance in this website. The first web link that you see here on this slide. There's also a now hiring job board that we constantly update with the latest job opportunities and hiring events, job fairs. And also we encourage you to follow us. And when I say us, I mean the Maryland Department of Labor. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Next slide, please. All right, this slide has a list of regional business solutions consultants. They are able to assist you depending on your county. They can refer you to the appropriate channels for you to connect with your employment specialist or job service specialist. Next slide. All right, so in case you were wondering, I'm not sure if anybody here in this group or in this call today is applying for unemployment or currently receiving unemployment. If you are and you want to use this event as one of your re-employment activities, all you have to do is click on this link, and there'll be this link is a video tutorial for you. It'll show you how to enter today's event into one of your 3 activities that you need to provide weekly to the Unemployment Insurance Division. Okay. Again, you will be receiving a copy of this presentation, and you'll have access to the link. Next slide, please. All right, I'm not sure if Mitra has anything to add. Mitra, would you like to add anything? Did I forget anything about the jobs seeker services at the American Job Centers?
I would like to add, Liz, thank you so much. I would like to add, for people who are coming to this country and they do not have exactly the information on labor market, we help. We sit down with people to give them the understanding of what the labor market statistics, what are the demands, can your skills be converted or transferred to another skill? And those are things that basically we can answer. And of course, we can pay for English language learners. If you're looking for GED, it's free for you. We will pay for the entire amount of tuition that you need to get your GED. We are constantly doing it. And of course, we have partners like the Harvard Community College who partner with us. And it's definitely a very proud moment when we can see graduates coming out from the English language learning school. So that is all I needed to add. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Mitra. And yes, we do, that reminds me, we do work with partners. Without our partners, all this assistance could not be possible. We partner with Howard County government. We partner with the Harford County Community College, employ Prince George's. Those are all our partners. In my area, I'm up here in Cecil and Harford County, and my partner is the Susquehanna Workforce Network. They are all available to provide you with information about free training. So it's very important that, like Mitra said, just to know what is it exactly that you would like to do, and then ask for, is there a training? Is there a certification that I can probably take that would help me get the foot in the door to that job that I want? So certifications are big, let me tell you, more than education. Sometimes even, for example, the IT, sometimes it's like they're so valuable. So if you qualify, they're free training. Mitra should be your best friend from now on to get that free training. But that's, I mean, if there are any questions, that's pretty much all I have to share with you today. Claudia?
Thank you, Liz. We're going to turn it over to Ms. Oport, but I did want to mention, you said it, at no cost to you, free. Please take advantage of these resources and benefits. They're there, they're available. If you know somebody else that needs them, please connect them with us. Also, Joanne is going to give you more details about the next event. Joanne?
Hi, everyone. I hope you are all really engaging with us and really learning a lot of amazing, valuable resources as job seekers, as immigrants here in Maryland. And we really received amazing resources from our two presenters, two presenting organizations who are also part of the Skilled Immigrant Task Force. So for our next event, we have a hiring fair on September 15th from 1 to 3 p.m., which is the same time. And we still have a link that we'll share with you via email, but it's also on the PowerPoint presentation. Please go ahead and register for this job fair. We've been working hard in the background to secure employers so they can share with you what other employment opportunities they have. The resources will be sent to you via email. And any questions that you have, please definitely reach out to us. Our email is DLWDAL, New Americans -labor @maryland.gov. That email again is DLWAL, New Americans -labor @maryland.gov. That is a specific email for the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force. And, with everything that you're doing out here, you cannot make it a successful event without a team. And the team at the task force has been working behind the scenes, really navigating the process. I hope you are all able to see them answering your questions back and forth, and really impressed with their labor and the amount of time and dedication they have. They serve on the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force. And I just want to reiterate what the task force is. The Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force collaborates across organizations to advance workforce system accessibility and career opportunities for foreign trained individuals in the state of Maryland. We offer a wealth of resources available to job seekers and employers. So I want to thank our two presenters, Tom Dezell with POAC and Senay Gebremedhin with WES, as well as our language interpreters who came in through Ad Astra. They did an amazing job to really make sure that they, create the accessibility for you as the audience. The team that's been really working behind the scene, and I want them to turn on their videos so you can see who they specifically are, and you can get to know who they are, and you can see the faces of the individuals. The first person is Claudia Marin with Employee Prince George's. She's been the one facilitating the conversation series between the presenters, and she's with an American Job Center. She's, reach out to her, reach out to Employee Prince George's out here. They will get you employed. They will get you those resumes that you need to have so you are, attractive and accessible to the employers. The next team member is Mitra Basu with Howard County. And she's a fireball out here. She's always making sure she's negotiating for you at the table when we're having our meetings and ensuring that we provide the correct value add. Katie Edwards, a big major shout out to Katie Edwards. She's with Howard County Community College. They are the ones hosting this event for us through this webinar. They provided the resources to you so that you are able to, engage with the audience and engage with the panelists and learn more about job resources that are out here. So Katie Edwards, we just want to thank you and Howard Community College for definitely putting us together to do this event. And let me roll over to the Department of Labor. They came with a whole baton of a team out there. I'll start with Yoon Young Hong. She's the New Americans Initiative Coordinator. She's the one who's managing the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force. So any questions that you have, definitely shoot them via email to the email that we provided. Alexa Stone is a special assistant to the New Americans Initiatives. And she's also I can't even begin to explain who these people are to you. They've been meeting tirelessly to make sure that they provide the resources. Liz Rodriguez is the one who's bringing the employers. So September 15th, make sure you sign up. Please send the link to your friends, send them through WhatsApp for us who are in the immigrant community, post them on your social media, make sure that you are getting the information out. You are our ambassadors right now for the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force. Natalie Clements is our policy analyst. She's with the Maryland Department of Labor. She's with the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. So she's been navigating the process with us here. And last but not least is John S. Fester III. He is a Chief Learning Officer with Labor, and he's been working hand in hand with Katie to make sure that any communications, glitches, any accessibility issues that you have are well navigated. So we really appreciate all of you participating. We appreciate you sending all your questions. Put any questions in the box before we log off at 3 p.m. My name is Joanne Olport. I'm with the Governor's Office of Community Initiative. I serve on the Governor's Office Commission on African Affairs. There are about seven ethnic commissions, and we are about 100 commissioners in the state. And we really want to engage the immigrant community. So the Skilled Immigrant Task Force is the one that's right there at the center, really campaigning for you as foreign individuals who are trained outside the United States. We meet monthly to make sure that we are creating value add to you. So there are information that we are sharing with you as job seekers. There's information that we are developing specific to employers. So if you ever think that you are alone and there's no one out here advocating for you as foreign trained individuals, the Maryland Skilled Immigrant Task Force is the one doing that. And so we thank you so much for joining us. We thank you so much for taking your time to engage with us. Did I miss anyone in this? I know a couple of the Skilled Immigrant Task Force members are listening, but we want to appreciate you sharing this information. Please register for September 15th. I don't want to hear when you call me on my phone saying, hey, I'm looking for a job and I don't know where to go. We have the resources out here for you. It's a pandemic, yes. And, we want you to definitely make sure that you sign up for the job hiring event. And so the job hiring event, again, is September 15th from 1 to 3. Please be on time. It's going to be a webinar in the same format. We will have language interpretation. So we want to thank Ad Astra for providing a wealth of accessibility through their presentation. Before we close, please go ahead and complete the survey for us. You know, we like instant information. Please go ahead and select where you rank on this, how satisfied you are with this event. How likely are you to recommend this event? This is the first of many events we are hosting. As a Skilled Immigrant Task Force, we are going to be doing more events with you. So we definitely want you to complete the survey. We'll send out an email with all the resources. Please, please, please complete the satisfaction survey so we can improve and add value to you. So thank you so much for everyone joining and participating.